This is the Whimsy Farm Podcast. I'm Carolyn Crane.
There's a big wide world right out your door. Good people doing good things. Whoa, it's a big wide world. Now is the time. Now is our time.
Welcome, everyone, to a special bonus episode of the Whimsy Farm Podcast to celebrate the Capricorn solstice. We call it the Capricorn solstice because in the Southern Hemisphere, it's the summer solstice, and we don't want to be Northern Hemisphere centric. So we call it the Capricorn solstice.
Oh, that's
And
great. I'm glad to know that.
And that's the voice and beautiful face, of course, of Maryam Barrie. And she brings us Poetry Sustains periodically throughout the seasons. And today, this is all about Poetry Sustains and Maryam and one poem that is dear to your heart, right, Maryam?
It's very dear to my heart. And as I told you before, it's been so exciting to anticipate getting to do a deep dive on it. I feel like I've been drinking it like it was heroin for the last couple weeks. It's been great.
That's really spoken like someone whose poetry is in the blood as it is in your blood. Yeah,
Yes.
a good thing to be addicted to.
Yeah, it's not hurting anybody for sure.
Okay, well, let's share our screens
Sure.
and get to the poem.
Great. Here's Brigit Pegeen Kelly. She was an amazingly private poet, and she won this award through the Yale Series of Younger Poets for her first book, To the Place of Trumpets, and I think that is where this photo came. She did not share information. And when people wanted to interview her, she would say, "No, why don't you read the work?" and would walk away. So I love that she was such a rebel in that way. So
Yes, she was definitely taking things on her own terms.
absolutely. And she only lived to be 62, but people, it's not for public consumption what she even died of. So it's all wrapped in a veil. And I think that idea that things are that are important are hidden is part of what draws me to this poem so much. And I love that when we first talked about it, you were, I, I hope don't want to put words in your mouth, but I thought you were saying, I don't care for it that much.
I didn't care for it that much, and I thought, well, in concert to other poems and a usual poetry sustained segment, it was too much. But I
It's
also was turned off by the I don't want to say grotesqueness, but the
the
graphic,
brutality.
the brutality, and that's it doesn't always bother me, but for some reason it really hit me with this. So this is not a frilly poem, folks.
No, it's not an easy poem necessarily either. It's definitely a nutritious poem, though. Um,
Why does it particularly speak to you on the Capricorn solstice?
I think because at this time of the year, there is more darkness than light. And I know that's a big problem for people with seasonal affect disorder, but it's not a problem for me. And I really like the way that at about 5:30 the sky starts to get violet blue, and then it's all dark by 6. So the poem connects for me in that way because there is so much darkness in it. There's physical darkness, but there's also the darkness of the boy's behavior. And as I was going over it over and again, over this last week. I thought, this is a time, this is a moment when there is so much ugliness that we really need to pay attention to. And it's not something many of us want to do. I have friends who say, don't talk to me about this stuff. I can't do anything about it, and I don't want to know every thing that's happening, which I try to respect, but personally, I think paying attention to what's in the shadows is good for our personal growth and it's good for our souls. Um, you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. And I agree. And so I said to you when we were talking about the show, this episode, bonus episode, I said, why don't we just focus on this darkness that I've been avoiding
Oh, okay.
and
Yeah,
trust you to guide all of our
sure,
viewers and
sure.
listeners through it in the spirit of what you just said.
Great.
So, are you're going to read it and then talk more
I'm
about it,
going to
right?
talk about just a few things I want to people to pay attention to as I read it, because it's all one stanza, so it could seem like just a big block of words getting poured in your head. But it's called Song, and it was the title poem in her second book, which is, Song. Um, there are so many references to different sounds and to a variety of songs in the poem, and I think it'll enrich the poem for us to be able to notice when those things happen. The other thing I wanted to say at the beginning is that there is a lot of repetition in the poem that is almost, it's not quite biblical. I wouldn't go that far, but things get said more than once in a row. And I think that happens in songs too. And she's doing it here for a reason to show a particular emphasis. Um, so there's that. I also think it reads like a fable. Most of her work has such a mythic quality. Um, and I think she had a very mythic experience of life. There was a story from one of her students who said, I was walking with her through town. We passed a stone wall, and she casually said, a lion walked out of that wall in my dream last night. Um, so that's sort of who she was. One fable that occurs to me um, is Mary Had a Little Lamb, which has this is almost a dark mirror for that. There's a little girl, she has a beloved, it's not a goat, it's a sheep, but they're both ungulates and, the pets. So that said, I'll go ahead and jump in.
Okay.
Song by Brigit Pegeen Kelly. Listen. There was a goat's head hanging by ropes in a tree. All night it hung there and sang, and those who heard it felt a hurt in their hearts and thought they were hearing the song of a night bird. They sat up in their beds and then they lay back down again. In the night wind, the goat's head swayed back and forth, and from far off it shone faintly, the way the moonlight shone on the train track miles away, beside which the goat's headless body lay. Some boys had hacked its head off. It was harder work than they had imagined. The goat cried like a man and struggled hard, but they finished the job. They hung the bleeding head by the school and then ran off into the darkness that seems to hide everything. The head hung in the tree. The body lay by the tracks. The head called to the body to the head. They missed each other. The missing grew large between them until it pulled the heart right out of the body, until the drawn heart flew toward the head, flew as a bird flies back to its cage and the familiar perch from which it trills. Then the heart sang in the head, softly at first and then louder, sang long and low until the morning light came up over the school and over the tree, and then the singing stopped. The goat had belonged to a small girl. She named the goat Broken Thorn Sweet Blackberry, named it after the night's bush of stars, because the goat's silky hair was dark as well water, because it had eyes like wild fruit. The girl lived near a high railroad track. At night, she heard the trains passing, the sweet sound of the train's horn pouring softly over her bed, and each morning she woke to give the bleeding goat his pail of warm milk. She sang him songs about girls with ropes and cooks in boats. She brushed him with a stiff brush. She dreamed daily that he grew bigger, and he did. She thought her dreaming made it so. But one night, the girl didn't hear the train's horn, and the next morning she woke to an empty yard. The goat was gone. Everything looked strange. It was as if a storm had passed through while she slept, wind and stones, rain stripping the branches of fruit. She knew that someone had stolen the goat and that he had come to harm. She called to him. All morning and into the afternoon, she called to him and called. She walked and walked, and in her chest, a bad feeling, like the feeling of the stones gouging the soft undersides of her bare feet. Then somebody found the goat's body by the high tracks, the flies already filling their soft bottles at the goat's torn neck. Then somebody found the head hanging in a tree by the school. They hurried to take these things away so that the girl would not see them. They hurried to raise money to buy the girl another goat. They hurried to find the boys who had done this, to hear them say, "It was a joke, a joke. It was nothing but a joke." But listen, here is the point. The boys thought to have their fun and be done with it. It was harder work than they had imagined, this silly sacrifice. But they finished the job, whistling as they washed their large hands in the dark. What they didn't know was that the goat's head was already singing behind them in the tree. What they didn't know was that the goat's head would go on singing just for them long after the ropes were down, and that they would learn to listen, pail after pail, stroke after patient stroke. They would wake in the night thinking they heard the wind in the trees or a night bird, but their hearts beating harder. There would be a whistle, a hum, a high murmur, and at last a song, the low song a lost boy sings, remembering his mother's call. Not a cruel song. No, no, not cruel at all. This song is sweet. It is sweet. The heart dies of this sweetness. It's a lot. I get that it's a lot.
You read it so beautifully.
I love it. I just love it. And I just realized a few days ago this line here, I think I just read it and skipped over it in the past, but that the boys are learning to listen, pail after pail, stroke after patient stroke. The pails are the pails the little girl fed the goat of warm milk, and the strokes are the way she used to brush his dark and silky hair. And that's part of what they're listening to. And I love the way that this poem, I mean, we feel sad for the girl. She ends up with another goat. There's ugliness in the world, and she's realizing it, but she, I think, gets cared for. The boys who did this, who had their fun, but they had to work harder than they imagined for it, they're the ones who are haunted by what they've done. And the song of that episode and of the brutality that they committed is going to follow them for their whole lives. Maybe it's a stretch, Carolyn, but I think of the people who are being recruited by ICE to wear masks and to be hidden and to run up to people and kidnap them and earn whatever they earn for every body that they catch. I know they earn something. These are acts of brutality that are going to haunt them. And I love that she's worried about those boys who have behaved so poorly. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. I like how the community rises to support the girl, and the
Yes.
girl was coming from a place of love and devotion, and her
Yes.
love and devotion are appreciated by her community. And so her grief is a more pure grief because there's no guilt in her grief.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the guilt that the boys feel will haunt them, and they will never be as whole as the girl, ever.
No, they never will be. And I don't even know if they would identify it as grief, with this. It was a joke, a joke. It was nothing but a joke. Um, that is a lot of what toxic masculinity says about the acts of cruelty and brutality that get committed in pursuit of that agenda.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Which reminds me of a way, not to, I don't want to stay political, but I have felt such bewilderment at the acts of disenfranchisement and casual cruelty to women, to a variety of people by the administration and by our president. And I read a piece, maybe by Rebecca Solnit, that says it's not an accident that these acts of cruelty are being enfranchised. The cruelty is the point.
Yes.
And whether the boys realized it or not, while they whoops, sorry, while they worked so hard at taking the head off the goat, it's only an act of cruelty. There's nothing fun or jokey about it.
It's brainstem reaction.
Say what you mean.
It's the opposite of frontal lobe action, which the girl showed. It's this
Oh,
not thinking gut reaction to their own pain, probably. Someone hurt them. I
yeah, we don't
love that
know.
expression, who hurt you, when someone does something mean. Someone metaphorically cut their heads off. And so they're doing this because they haven't processed their own pain, their own wounds. So they're going and uh, sacrificing a goat to their unprocessed pain, taunting a girl who chooses love rather than hate.
Yeah, that's really good. I like that.
It opens up the depths of that ugliness of unprocessed horror that I think is at the root of the atrocities we're seeing.
Oh, in our country, yeah. And
And in
around
the world.
and
Yeah.
around the world, for sure. For sure. And I think this is a poem that goes on giving. And I mean, I in the last couple of weeks, I've probably read this more than 100 times. And I still am getting new things out of it or appreciating things in a slightly different way. Like they hung the bleeding head and then they ran off into the darkness that seems to hide everything. but nothing's really hidden. They can't hide it from themselves.
They can only hide it from themselves by pushing it out of their consciousness, by
Yeah.
numbing out in some way or other. But it's not a lasting hiding. It's a
No,
haunting. It's a haunting.
it is a haunting. Yeah. And there's so many other layers that work well here, like the head hung in the tree, the body by the tracks. The missing grew large between them until the heart is reunited with the head. And I don't know, I as somebody who's done a great deal of therapy and personal work, um, getting your head and your heart together to be in community with each other sometimes seems like the work of a lifetime.
I think it is the work of a lifetime, and I think it is the only way forward
Yes.
for everyone on Earth, not just humans, but the entire everything of Earth is to unite the head and heart, and the boys have not done that. And that's why they are capable of such cruelty.
Yeah. Yeah. The boys definitely are going to be dealing with this until they're done with their lives.
And science is showing us more and more that no, the heart is its own engine. The heart is running things as much as the brain is running things. And
Mhm.
we need that communion of heart and head in Qigong, the clarity point, or in the third eye, and then the heart, the openness, the unconditional love. Those need to be in harmony, or else bad shit happens.
Yeah, and we become self-destructive. We don't take care of ourselves. We don't make choices that help us grow. And sometimes we participate in our own damage.
Yes, we self-sabotage.
Yes, we certainly do. The other thing that I love, Carolyn, that's at work throughout this whole thing, almost in every line, is the sense that what we do becomes a song that follows us. So I think that's not just at the ending, but it's at the beginning of it too.
And what will our melodies be? What will our harmonies be?
Exactly. And what music will become of our actions. I also
Hmm.
just admire her bravura, the boldness it takes to write a poem like this. How often do you get to say listen at the beginning of a poem? Listen, to signal to us what I'm going to say is important. Listen to me. And then that gets repeated with, where is it? But listen, here is the point. I can't think of another poem that stops to say, here is the point. It's
Yes.
so direct and clear, but it stays within that sort of fable-y framework that she's got at play in the poem.
And then she also has, after that, when the boys would learn to listen,
Yes,
when they can
yes,
no longer tune out what they've done, they can no longer tune out their cruelty.
right. And how will they deal with that? I mean, we know that there are ways of dealing with having committed cruelty that don't turn out well for other people and other things.
So true.
Because sometimes people double down on, I'm okay that I was an asshole. Oh, sorry. Should we not swear?
Oh, we can swear on this podcast. I love that about podcasts.
Oh,
I
that's
was just noticing the name of the goat, the small girl
yes.
who acts with love. Broken Thorn sweet blackberry. The darkness and the light together in one long name. Broken thorn, sweet blackberry. She
Yeah.
understood. She understood when she named the goat that there were these two sides to reality.
Yeah, and there are those two sides. Um, and admittedly, the darkness in this poem is there's more darkness than there is light, but there is light buried in there with the girl
And the community.
and the community. Yeah, that's true. And the community.
They tried to protect her.
Yeah, and she clearly is intuitive enough to know, oh, he's come to harm. Something bad has happened to him. I don't know. What are you thinking about it now, Carolyn?
Maryam, you've won me over.
Oh dear. Really? That was easy.
Mhm. I was so, I think when I had a reaction that applies metaphorically to the political things you've been talking about. When I first looked at the poem, I didn't want to look at it. It seemed so ugly.
Yeah.
I was like, ew, well, I don't have to read this for a class. I
So I won't.
don't want to read this ugly poem. Hacked its head off. Ooh, Mariam, why do you want me to read this poem? But
Yeah.
now I understand. Thank you, my dear.
What do you think was the hardest part of it, or did you just walk away from it before you finished it?
I only skimmed
Ah,
through the later part because I had to drag myself after hacked its head off. I had to drag
oh yeah,
myself
yeah, yeah.
and then I
Hacked
just
its
sort
head
of
off is
ran
bad.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think this is the hardest part for me, and I'm not exactly sure why. Um, the flies already filling their soft bottles at the goat's torn neck. There's something about their bodies being described as soft bottles that's really visceral and upsetting.
Yes. Yes, that was a hard part also.
Yeah. Well, do you want to read it?
Yes, I will read it now.
That'd be awesome. Let me scroll up to the top.
Song by Brigit Pegeen Kelly. Listen, there was a goat's head hanging by ropes in a tree. All night it hung there and sang. And those who heard it felt a hurt in their hearts and thought they were hearing the song of a night bird. They sat up in their beds and then they lay back down again. In the night wind, the goat's head swayed back and forth, and from far off it shone faintly the way the moonlight shone on the train track miles away, beside which the goat's headless body lay. Some boys had hacked its head off. It was harder work than they had imagined. The goat cried like a man and struggled hard, but they finished the job. They hung the bleeding head by the school, and they ran off into the darkness that seems to hide everything. The head hung in the tree, the body lay by the tracks. The head called to the body to the head. They missed each other. The missing grew large between them until it pulled the heart right out of the body, until the drawn heart flew toward the head, flew as a bird flies back to its cage and the familiar perch from which it trills. Then the heart sang in the head, softly at first and then louder, sang long and low until the morning light came up over the school and over the tree, and then the singing stopped. The goat had belonged to a small girl. She named the goat Broken Thorn Sweet Blackberry, named it after the night's bush of stars, because the goat's silky hair was dark as well water, because it had eyes like wild fruit. The girl lived near a high railroad track. At night she heard the trains passing, the sweet sound of the train's horn pouring softly over her bed, and each morning she woke to give the bleeding goat his pail of warm milk. She sang him songs about girls with ropes and cooks in boats. She brushed him with a stiff brush. She dreamed daily that he grew bigger, and he did. She thought her dreaming made it so. But one night the girl didn't hear the train's horn, and the next morning she woke to an empty yard. The goat was gone. Everything looked strange. It was as if a storm had passed through while she slept. Wind and stones, rain, stripping the branches of fruit. She knew that someone had stolen the goat and that he had come to harm. She called to him all morning and into the afternoon. She called and called. She walked and walked. In her chest, a bad feeling, like the feeling of the stones gouging the soft undersides of her bare feet. Then somebody found the goat's body by the high tracks, the flies already filling their soft bottles at the goat's torn neck. Then somebody found the head hanging in a tree by the school. They hurried to take these things away so that the girl would not see them. They hurried to raise money to buy the girl another goat. They hurried to find the boys who had done this, to hear them say, "It was a joke, it was nothing but a joke." But listen, here is the point. The boys thought to have their fun and be done with it. It was harder work than they had imagined, this silly sacrifice, but they finished the job, whistling as they washed their large hands in the dark. What they didn't know was that the goat's head was already singing behind them in the tree. What they didn't know was that the goat's head would go on singing just for them, long after the ropes were down, and that they would learn to listen, pail after pail, stroke after patient stroke. They would wake in the night thinking they heard the wind in the trees or a night bird, but their hearts beating harder. There would be a whistle, a hum, a high murmur, and at last a song. The low song a lost boy sings, remembering his mother's call. Not a cruel song, no, no, not cruel at all. This song is sweet, it is sweet. The heart dies of this sweetness.
Oh, that was brilliant. That was really well done.
It's a very cathartic poem.
Yeah, maybe that's what I part of what I mean when I call it mythic. That some very deep territory gets stirred, and then there's a resolution of some kind.
And we don't have time to do a poetry seminar on craft, but ooh, the craft in here, the artful repetition, the
She's so good.
ways she uses vowel forms. I mean, I could go on and on.
Yeah, it's meant to be read aloud, and theoretically that's true of every poem, right? But it's I find it particularly so with this that things come awake or come alive when the poem gets read. And I realized something for the first time listening to you read it, and I'm gonna come up and see if I can show it to you. Oh, and I did that again. Where's oh, there it is. Named it after the night's bush of stars, because the goat's silky hair was dark as well water, because it had eyes like wild fruit. I think I always understood what the eyes like wild fruit would be, like some sort of sweet old knowing, but I never really understood the night's bush of stars. But if I'm looking in a well that's dark, I would see the stars reflected in that well.
Yes, that's lovely, isn't it?
It is really nice. It just keeps on giving in its horrible,
Yes.
gruesome kind of way.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad you were willing to take an extended look at something that is meant to make us uncomfortable.
Yes, I was thinking about it, and it was like this feeling I had, almost like an entity on my shoulder that said, "Come on, look at this thing you don't want to look at.
Yeah. Listen.
Listen, here's the point.
Yeah.
Look into the darkness and find the light." And that brings us back to the Capricorn solstice.
It does bring us back to the solstice. Thanks for helping me articulate what I thought the connection was. This has been so fun.
It's been wonderful having you as a regular guest on season one, and we look forward to you coming back on season two. And I haven't asked you yet until now, but I'm hoping you'll come back on Valentine's Day
Oh,
for our
sure.
February 15th. We're doing unconventional love.
Oh, I've got some good ones.
You're already thinking. Okay, we'll look
Yes.
forward to that, and you'll hear more about that in a second as I say goodbye, dear listeners.
Goodbye.
So,
Thanks, Carolyn.
goodbye, Maryam. Happy
Goodbye.
solstice.
Happy solstice.
Thanks for joining Maryam Barrie and me for this bonus Capricorn solstice episode of the Whimsy Farm podcast and an extended edition of Poetry Sustains featuring Brigit Pegeen Kelly's poem, Song. This podcast is produced on the sacred ancestral land of the Anishinaabe people. Thanks to the California band Castle House for writing and performing our music. The Whimsy Farm podcast airs the 1st and 15th of each month on our YouTube channel, Carolyn Crane and Whimsy Farm, and wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Thanks to our underwriter, Just Play Productions, and to our paid Patreon members for their support of today's podcast. If you'd like to offer your support, please visit my website, whimsyfarm.net, and click the Patreon link to find a level of support that's right for you. There's also a free membership level. You could email me through the website, as well as access all links to past and current episodes. That's whimsyfarm.net. Season 2 of the podcast begins January 1st, when I will be in conversation with author and educator Laura Pritchett. We'll talk about the wild within us, being our authentic selves, looking inward in the winter, and many other things. Until then, remember the words of Utah Phillips, who said, "Too many good people are doing too many good things to afford me the luxury of being pessimistic." Get out there and create some positive change. Stay safe, everyone, and happy solstice.
whimsyfarms.net